Thanks to the need to decarbonize energy sector, an entirely new industry is about to make its debut, not just in India, elsewhere in the world also. A lot of people are talking about it. In fact, it got mentioned twice or thrice in the joint statement put out by the world energy ministers soon after their clean energy ministerial meeting in Goa that happened in July. This industry is called Small Modular Reactors Industry, or SMR. In this video, we are going to take a close look at what this SMR is all about and why it is so important. Imagine a large university campus or in an industrial township, let's say a township of NTPC or BHEL or say Tata Steel's Jamshedpur, any industrial township. And imagine a small nuclear power plant sitting in a corner and producing electricity for the entire township or the campus. Is this possible? We have always known of nuclear power plants as large entities occupying lots of space and not many people being allowed inside and so on. Is it really possible to have a small nuclear power plant in an industrial township or a university campus or in a small town? It is possible. This is SMR, small modular reactors, which all people in the world are talking about today. Now, what is this SMR? SMRs are, as the name suggests, basically small sized reactors which can build modularly. That means you can keep on adding, scaling it up, adding to the capacity. And by the broad definition that is given by International Atomic Energy Agency and bodies like that, it can range anywhere between 30 megawatts and 300 megawatts. But today people are even talking about even much smaller capacities, even kilowatt size capacities. You can have a nuclear power plant of maybe, let's say, 100 kilowatts or so also, that people are talking about it. Oh, this is very important because we all know that to decarbonize, you need all kinds of clean energy, and nuclear power is whatever else one may say about it, it's really clean green power, and it is base load. That is, it keeps producing a steady stream of electricity, unlike wind or solar, which can keep going up and down. There is no intermittency problem. In fact, nuclear energy can be used to balance out the intermittency problem of wind and solar. SMRs have many advantages because they are small in size and modular. That is, you can keep adding to the capacity. They can be put up practically anywhere. And some experts have suggested that a good place to locate these SMRs or put up these SMRs could be the retired thermal power plants or coal power plants where the boiler and turbines have been taken off and there is land. The advantages of this is that all the attendant peripheral infrastructure is already there. For example, transmission lines, water supply, storage yards, all of these things are already there. They were built for the power plants, and once this thermal power plant is retired, all of them is still available for putting up the small modular reactors. Experts like Dr. Anil Kakodkar, a very well-known name in the nuclear industry, was a former Atomic Energy Commission chairman. He has made this point. And another place where SMRs could be put up is in barges. You can locate an SMR on a barge and a ship can tow it around anywhere there is a need for electricity. In fact, these barge-mounted power plants are nothing new to us. Some people may remember this 200 megawatt diesel-fired Tanir Bavi plant. It was barge-mounted. They can be put up on a barge and taken around. And the other advantage is that because of the standard design, they can be really factory-produced, mass-produced. You can produce a dozen of them, for example, which means the cost of production will come down, and therefore correspondingly the cost of electricity they generate can also potentially come down. There are so many advantages like this, and that is why everybody is talking about it. In fact, these SMRs are also not very new to us. Small nuclear reactors are those that power our nuclear submarines. For example, INS Arihant has a 83 megawatt nuclear reactor generating and supplying power to the entire submarine so that the submarine can stay underwater for weeks or even months. And even this 220 megawatt reactors that we have in Kalpakkam near Chennai are also technically small, though they are not modular. So we already have experience in using small reactors, we have experience in barge mounted reactors, and we have some excellent locations to put them up. And that is why SMRs are slowly getting mainstreamed. It is occupying the mind space of energy planners, and more people are talking about it in right earnest. In May 2023, the Niti Aayog, which is Indian government's premier think tank, brought out a report. It's basically a status report on where the world stands in SMRs, what is happening in different parts of the world, who is building what, and so on and so forth. A very detailed report, a link to which is given in the description below. Please do check it out. From that report, we learned that there are only two operational, that is functioning SMRs in the world at the moment. One is academic Lomonosov plant, which, as I just now said, is barge mounted. It is a 35 megawatt plant that is put on a barge and taken to a very remote township called Pivek on the Arctic coast, the northern coast of Siberia. Imagine such a remote place, maybe with just a few hundred people living there doing some mining or some other activities. There is no way on earth that anybody can pull transmission lines to that point. You need to have some generating capacity right there, and there is nothing else but nuclear power plant. So they have built a small nuclear power plant, 35 megawatt, and put it on the back of a ship, a barge, and taken it there to the port. It is there moved at the port and generating and supplying electricity. This is one SMR. The other one is in China, which is slightly bigger. It is a 210 megawatt plant, which is also an SMR. Apart from these functioning ones, there are two more under construction right away. That means they have gone past the planning stage and are right now being built. One of them is a 30 megawatt plant in Argentina, another one, bigger one, a 300 megawatt plant in Russia. Both of these are expected to be commissioned and start producing electricity somewhere around 2026 or 2027. These are under construction. So two already functioning, two under construction, but a number of others are under development, that is, they are being planned. They are in the US, France, Russia, China, and so on. Though none in India. India, however, is very closely watching this situation. And as I said just now, the Niti Aayog is seized of the matter, has produced a status paper on this, and is now has started giving suggestions for policy making. So SMRs will come into being for sure in the near future. And when that happens, you will have an entirely new industry. The private sector will gear up, it will start producing, it's a multi-billion dollar industry. It will explode. It will take some years for this to happen, but it will happen. The first major challenge or hurdle that needs to be tackled is the development of regulations for this. As we all know, today in India, nuclear power generation is entirely the preserve of the government of India. The private sector can produce components and parts and machinery, but they cannot get into nuclear power generation. That is the current regulation. That needs to change, because if you are thinking of hundreds of SMRs spread all across the country, only the government cannot do it, and it's not sensible also. Neither is the government thinking on these lines. So the private sector must first be allowed to do it. In which case, there are several other issues to tackle. Issues like non-proliferation. Must make sure that no nuclear material is kind of sold off or transferred, and must make sure that no nuclear material falls into wrong hands. Safety and security related issues, and the regulations that India brings in must be in sync with the global regulations also. So some kind of harmonization should happen here. And by the way, on this subject, the International Atomic Energy Agency, headquartered in Vienna, which is a UN body, has launched an initiative called Nuclear Harmonization and Standardization Initiative. The main purpose of this is to standardize regulations so that all countries have similar regulations. The other thing that is to be noted here is access to fuel. If somebody puts up a plant, have access to nuclear fuel. On this, Dr. V.K. Saraswat, member Niti Aayog, has told me that it is Niti Aayog's thinking that issues related to access to fuel are best left to the developer, that is the company that puts up this small nuclear reactor. Let them tie up their fuel supplies. After all, availability of fuel is not a big problem. There is plenty of uranium and plutonium available, and it's a question of the nuclear power producer tying up fuel supplies. That is one problem. The other one is how to deal with nuclear wastes. This is also not an insurmountable problem, not such a big problem, because come to think of it, after all, if you have some nuclear wastes, India has a fairly large nuclear power establishment thanks to the government company Nuclear Power Corporation of India. All the SMR company needs to do is to hand over the task of disposing the nuclear waste to NPCIL. It can be handled that way. So, to sum up, yes, there are some challenges, mainly regulatory, but none of these is a big or insurmountable challenge. And with the political will that the government is now displaying in this, pretty much sure that SMRs will come into being, as it is happening elsewhere in the world. When that happens, as I said in the beginning, you will see the birth of an entirely new industry helping decarbonize India's energy sector.